Welcome to the Mismatch. I'm Chris Vernon, and joining me as he does every Friday from TheRinger.com is Dave Jacoby. Jacoby!
What's happening, Verno?
We've got a lot of things that we've got to get to from the week that was in the NBA, all of our loves and loathes. But we got to start off with the big story in the NBA, the one that has gotten the most headlines, is the Philadelphia 76ers, who many people predicted to be one of the beasts of the East, is actually the worst. They're 2-12. I got a chance to see them in person this week after their big team meeting that took place. They flew to Memphis to play against the Memphis Grizzlies, and they lost that, which dropped them to 2-12. And they had Maxey back in the lineup, and they had Paul George back in the lineup. And those guys have gotten virtually no minutes together outside of what I saw the other night. You flipped it on. I was there at the arena.
The world was watching. And just the buildup was so much because we have the information about the meeting, okay? And then we have the next level to the story is, Tyrese Maxey told Embiid not to be late. And then the next level of the story is everyone's mad that information got out. Who put the information out? Now we're all sleuths trying to figure out who leaked the information. And then the next level of the story is Podcast P goes on his podcast and is like, it was a very productive meetings. This happens all the time. There's nothing to see here. Everybody move on. So we're like, let's just check in on these 76ers at full strength almost for the first time against a depleted Grizzlies team after the meeting. That's a guaranteed win, right? That's a guaranteed win, right?
Well, they were favored in the game, though. Interestingly enough, they've only had 2 wins this season. Anybody can go look this up. They're both in overtime. They're two. I mean, they could really be very easily 2 or 0-14 so far this year. So I get to the arena before that game, and I get this text message. So there's a guy that I know that is in town, and he's one of those like memorabilia guys. Big in the sports memorabilia, autograph world, whatever. One of those guys that every city has these. They go to opposing teams' hotels. They know where the opposing team is staying. They'll go out there and they'll try to get them to sign this or whatever it may be, right? So anyways, I get this text, and the guy says, I've never seen this before. He says, team buses leave at like 5 o'clock. And then there's a second bus that leaves at like 5:15. That's how virtually all of these NBA teams work. And then there will be some guys like, and I would say the majority of the team is always on the first bus. And then a lot of the traveling party is on the second bus. And 5:15 is about the latest that second one will leave from the hotel. So the guy says, Embiid did not leave that hotel until 5:55. And I was like, what? The game is at 7. And what's crazy about this, Jacoby, he warmed up super late and warmed up for about 3 to 5 minutes and then went and played in the game. And he ended up having maybe the least impressive 35 and 11 I've ever seen in my life.
Ever seen.
And flopped on a free throw, tried to get flopped all the way down the court against Jaren Jackson, and then like almost purposely tripped over his feet. It was just bizarre.
So let's talk about the body language during the game, but I want to wrap up this sort of like bus thing, because as far as we know, he could be getting extra treatment. It could be part of the plan. It could be team approved. As far as we know, it could totally be just like he was getting extra treatment in the hotel. This is part of his regular routine or whatever. But you got to remember who the source of this is. Given the circumstances,
right?
Who the source of this is also is this guy knows when teams are in town, knows where they're staying, and every single game sits outside the hotel. So he knows the rhythms of an NBA traveling party very well. And he found it very odd. And if you were going to get treatment, you would probably get treatment at the arena when you're in that environment before the game. Well, and if everyone's talking about how you're late,
right?
Don't be late to the next thing. Well, you know what I mean?
Everyone's on high alert because of that. right? I mean, that story is everywhere.
Everywhere.
And so now it's like, all right, let's see how this team is interacting with each other. So the guy's waiting out there, and he's like, Embiid's not out, Embiid's not out, Embiid's not out. And so it may be nothing. That may be the way he conducts himself on a regular occasion. I will just tell you, this guy said he'd never seen it. And by the way, that's an hour before the game. You know what I mean?
And they usually warm-ups are usually like very patterned, and they're staggered, and you're out there warming up for 10, 15 minutes at least. And it's a routine that they do. It's not like all 12 players are out there shooting at the same time.
Did you? I mean, I don't know if you watch that show on Netflix that LeBron and them put out, the basketball show. I can't even remember the name of it
Starting
anymore.
Five.
Starting Five. He gets to the arena at like 2.
Yeah.
To start getting ready for the game. Right? I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy. And then I saw him. He was the only person out there like mega late warming up, and warmed up for like no amount of time. And then was the body language throughout the game, and then was obviously
wild,
very pissed after the game because it was the first time. So they tried to ask him the day before about the meeting, and he's like, we had a meeting, and just kind of blew it off. I think you come to the reality of, I'm not going to be able to blow this off. I'm going to have to talk about this. And so then he went into this diatribe after the game about how it's bullshit and how that gets out. And, you know, it's happened a couple times where I've been late and I wasn't, or tardy, and I wasn't even playing. But I know that because it's Joel Embiid, he went third person, by the way. I know you appreciate that.
Oh, God.
I know I have to be perfect. I know everything's my fault. And it's like, oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Victim Embiid. He's been victim Embiid a few times. Remember his whole, like, I've done too much for this city? Remember he said, I've got the quote. He said, quote, when I see people saying he doesn't want to play, I've done way too much for this city. Putting myself at risk like that, I think it's bull bleep. I've done way too much for this city, way too bleeping much for this city to be treated like this. Like, victim Embiid is a thing that he's doing now, and it doesn't look good on him.
No, and they just looked. I did not think Maxey should have played. I am a huge Maxey fan. He has not played very well even before he got injured this year, not up to his standard. I know those guys, you know, have not played a lot of minutes together. I know there's not been a lot of time to get the continuity together. I watched it and I'm like, I'm not sure about the continuity, even if they are able to play. Obviously, Paul George got hurt in the game, but I really felt like I wondered as we were watching there. I said to the guy sitting next to me, I said, I bet he's not playing if that story doesn't come out. Because it looked like, you know, he was questionable going in. And so it's like, is this going to be the game he comes back? And so it's at least worth thinking, okay, that story comes out. It names him by name, right? Mm-hmm. This wasn't like, here's, the source gives this to Shams Charania, and it's one of those, different players spoke up in the meeting and said so-and-so. Like, there's a name attached. Tyrese Maxey called out Joel Embiid and said this, and this. And that's what makes it, to me, the specifics, and Podcast P even brought this up, like how it was word for word what was going on there. That, to me, makes it just this colossal breach of trust that, to me, makes it almost impossible to repair. Honestly.
Someone wanted to throw gas on that fire, because you have to wonder, someone gave that information to Shams, but why? And what is their motivation? What's their agenda? What did they want? I don't know the answer to those questions because I don't know who did it, but whoever did that knew that it would turn into a thing. And one thing that it's also done, this whole like Maxey calls him late thing, it's breezed over the part where Joel Embiid is like, I don't really understand what we're doing on offense. What's my role in the offense? Bro, you've played like 60 minutes. What do you mean you don't know what your role is? Like you brought in like a Hall of Famer, and he doesn't really play that much. Max doesn't play that much. You guys, the three of you have been on the court together for like 7 minutes, and you're sitting there being like, I don't understand what we're doing on offense. Like, I don't understand what you're doing ever.
Yeah. And they're getting way behind the 8 ball, even in the disgusting East.
Oh, yeah.
I talked to you about this earlier this year when I saw the Bucks in person, and it's like, man, I just don't know about the mix. I don't know about the vibes. You see a lot of teams
That's
come
what I
to
want to
town,
hear.
and you see the way that those teams interact with each other. And sometimes they can even be bad teams. But you're like, I kind of like the way. Remember I told you about this, about Charlotte, when I saw him in the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
You laughed me off and then said, oh, yeah, Charles.
And then jumped right on the bandwagon.
I'm like, but I like the way that those guys interacted with each other. I like the way that they interact with the coach. By the way, totally allowed Charles Lee to get away with holding his best player accountable.
We'll talk about that later. We're going to talk about that later. We got a whole Hornets section later. But one thing I want to ask you is I'm watching the 76ers in that game, and I believe it was the end of the half. It was the end of the half, and Embiid takes like a buzzer shot, misses it, slumps his shoulders, doesn't interact with a single other person. This is just me watching on television. Doesn't interact with a single other person and just slowly hobbles his way to the tunnel. I just haven't seen that much. And when you're in the arena, like, take me to the half times, the timeouts, the bench, the anything.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that stands out is obviously the way he moves. The second thing that stands out is that he's got what appears to be 40 pounds. I sent you a picture during the game. I'm like, look at this leg. His left leg, it's like, you remember when Barry Bonds used to wear that armor on his front elbow? It's like that times a million. It's like, is there a leg under there somewhere?
It goes from his hip to his ankle.
And it's all these pads. He falls down all the time.
All the time.
All the time.
He's been doing that for years.
And then just the interaction between all of those players, as I told you, about the togetherness with these teams. And it just looks like five guys going separate ways. And I really think that when you are, you just watch the way they even interact on the court. And it's like, okay, here we go with another high pick and roll, and Joel Embiid hits another elbow jumper. Like, he had, honestly, the most unimpressive 35-11 game. I would challenge anybody to watch it, and you're like,
if you didn't see the game, you look at the box score, you're like, Embiid's back. Well, MVP candidate.
And because it wasn't really in service of anything else good happening.
Yeah.
It was just kind of, he is individually getting these numbers, and they're running this high pick and roll, and he can hit these elbow jumpers all day. Also, he has not missed a free throw the entire season. And he goes to the line like crazy.
Yeah.
He is not, so, that's impressive. But he's certainly, and then on defense, he's just, I don't, what is the opposite of a force? Like,
a vacuum? I don't know.
Yeah, right?
I don't know. It's unnatural to see rebounds carom towards him and him not just engulf them like he used to. Like, he lets defensive rebounders are sort of targeting him.
I'll give you one play that people might have missed. And this was one of those where it was like, this tells you a lot. So they end up running this Memphis runs this like high screen roll. The end result is Desmond Bane comes off a screen. Now it's a switch.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now it's Desmond Bane and it's Joel Embiid, and Joel Embiid's at like the 3-point line. Bane's kind of like dribbling, like, okay, what am I going to do here? How am I going to set this up? Which way am I going to drive? How are we going to handle this? Should I find a cutter because there's no big guy under the basket, or am I just going to bust this guy's ass? Right. So he like takes a couple like dribbles, and there's this moment right there, and it's like, oh, this is going to be fun. Joel Embiid takes one step towards Desmond Bane and just slaps him on the side. So that they call a foul.
Didn't want to deal with it.
And then just walks straight back down to the paint.
Yep.
And is like, I'm not doing this.
His body language was
and
just
I was like,
so
what?
off.
I was like, bro, it's one possession. All you have to do is like, he's like, I'm not guarding the little guy.
Just back up and contest. You're 7'3". Just back up. When he rises up, just contest. You're not going to block the shot. Just contest. Make him shoot a contested three. It's not hard.
It was wild to watch. Very rarely do you see somebody just bow out of a play. He just bowed out of it. He's like, I'm not doing this. I'm not. What are you going to do? Tear my knee again? No.
It was a very strange watch.
It was not a response to a team meeting game.
No.
No.
They didn't have the team meeting bump. That did not happen.
And he was pissed. He was pissed.
Yes.
So that's whoever leaked it out. Maybe you never know. Like what I guess the goal is, hey, we're going to need this guy. We need this guy to be an MVP. We need this guy to have the care factor. We need this guy to take all of this very seriously. And we're only going to go as far as our best player is going to take us. And so hopefully this will be a bump. Hopefully this will motivate him. But to me, obviously the opposite was true, which was just he resents this. He resents the fact that someone leaked that. He resents the fact that it was so detailed. And so it ends up not having the effect, which makes me then go into pop psychology and wonder, whoever wanted this out, whoever leaked this out, maybe they just don't care anymore. They don't care.
Or
They're
maybe they want to know.
Like not a, I'm doing this to inspire him, but rather a, F this guy.
The world should know. The world should know what we're dealing with here with this guy.
Correct.
I think that's kind of what it is. They're frustrated. This is my, again, pop psychology.
Yeah.
This person wants the world to know just how hard it is to be Joel Embiid's teammate. I think that's what it is. It's more frustration. It's not an agenda. It's not like they want him off the team and get traded. But I think that, listen, your memorabilia friend, again, could be excused, could be totally normal, could be protocol. We don't know. But it is interesting that he's mad at the team, thinks there's a sort of snitch in the locker room, and he doesn't sit on the bus with the team. Individually goes to the arena by himself. That cannot be protocol. That is not normal for an NBA traveling party. And it's notable. It's notable.
Couple other news and notes that we need to get to from the week that was. All-Star game format came out. I heard Bill talking about this, about how like they screwed this up. Like it's a good idea in theory, but they should have done it a different way that they're doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, I lamented the fact a couple of weeks ago. I even used it as one of the things that I loathe. Here we go again with the, what are we going to do with the All-Star game? And I'm really at the point of, I don't really care. As long as the players care, if you can find a way to get them to care and that it's not like it has been. And there have been, the last time I can remember enjoying it and them caring was after the year after Kobe passed away and they did that first target score. I was there.
That was close, though.
In Chicago. That was, it was right before COVID hit. And that was the last one that I can remember. And I've been at the other ones and they are duds. I mean, absolute duds. So, I mean, I found myself really liking that target score, Rising Stars format. And this feels a lot more like that. And so I give it a chance.
Sure. I mean, a couple things. Number one, I played a lot of pickup basketball with Bill, and he's a great pickup GM. He knows how to form a team. He knows how to recognize talent. He knows to evaluate players he's never even seen play. He's a great pickup GM. So I'm surprised. I'm not surprised that he has sort of some notes on how this should go.
We're taking a quick timeout because this is great. Everybody, I've been a Bill Simmons fan, since I can remember caring about sports and reading on the internet, as many have. Mm-hmm. I have heard Bill mention you and pickup basketball and talk about pickup basketball hundreds of times over the years. I need an evaluation of Bill Simmons as a basketball player. He brings up how you guys played. Where did you guys play all of this pickup basketball?
Grantland started in Los Angeles in 2011. Okay. And this is when I was playing a lot of basketball. It was sort of like my main source of exercise and joy and happiness. I had no children. And and the Grantland offices were downtown Los Angeles. A quick little ride down Figueroa to the USC campus. And at the USC campus, you can just kind of saunter into the gym and play, right?
What?
And they're not checking IDs. Like, I think I had something that I showed them at some point, but I didn't pay for anything, and neither did Bill. We just kind of got to know the people behind the desk or whatever. They're kind of apathetic about it. It's on campus. I don't know. It just worked. So we
and
would
it's
go.
just available?
We would just play there. Locker rooms, showers, 3 courts next to each other. I don't want to take too long with this. Let's get back to the NBA. But I'll say this, that it was clearly like he was getting back into playing pickup, something that he enjoyed as a kid. So it sort of like resurfaced for him. And we had a really good run of like 3 years of playing once or twice a week. And his game is he's got a good jump shot. And if he finds his spot, right? He's not an athlete. You know what I mean? He's not going to like jump up and block shots and grab it off the rim. He's also like 45 at this point or whatever. But he's got a spot 13 feet from the baseline. And it's like, I don't even go in for the rebound if he shoots from there. I just start running back. It's automatic. Quick hands, really good hands on defense. If he's the one on a 2-and-1, I guarantee you he's slapping the ball out of someone's hands before they get it above their shoulders. 100% of the time. 100% of the time.
I love to hear it.
Yeah, and he'll do the stuff. You know what I mean? He'll do the dirty work. Give you some notes. You know what I mean? He'll be like, bro, you haven't touched the ball in 5 possessions, but he'll tell me like what I need to do differently. It's like, you haven't touched it in 5 possessions. Like,
all right,
do something if you're going to
outside
speak
of
up.
you, who was the best player at Grantland?
It wasn't. Grantland had a lot of great basketball thinkers. Jalen was probably number 1.
I'd hope so.
I think Jalen was probably number 1. I was probably number 2.
Basketball thinker.
Rem could play. Rem could play a little bit. And I'm sure there's some people that I'm forgetting that I apologize to right now. But there was no duds. Like, everyone could play. But
yeah,
it was
USC. Watch the by next week, that USC gym is going to be filled with guys going to play pickup, being like, I heard this gym was open.
We had so much fun. But there's also
like,
we had that.
Who told you that this gym was just available?
There's 3 courts, and we called it the Garden and Meadowlands. You know what I mean? Because there's definitely like an A court, a B court, and a C court.
Yeah.
In terms of competition, so we'd kind of like look at the gym and somebody like, I think it's a Meadowlands day today, Bill. Yeah,
all right. So this originally started with you talking about playing a ton of pickup.
Yes.
Now the All-Star game
format. All-Star format is whatever. I'll say this. If it's the thing about the old format, it wasn't broken. It was just if there was a 20-25 point lead at the end, they would just mail in the rest of the game. But that, like you mentioned in Chicago, it was close. So they're like, all right, we got to get this win. They all want to win, but sometimes just because of the sort of exhibition nature of the first 3 quarters of the game, one team's got a double-digit lead and it's insurmountable, and then they just kind of like call it throwing the towel essentially and then play through it. I don't mind the All-Star game because I don't have expectations that it's going to be the Michael Jordan 1992 sort of like, let's play our hardest type of game anymore. I want to see the dunks. I want to see the threes. I want to see, Jokic shoot 30-footers. And I don't mind the thing, but I think with a 25-point championship, essentially, it will be competitive. Because it's 25 points. The problem with the All-Star game is one team is down 25 points with 10 minutes left. But now it's just first to 25. So I think we will get more competitive games. But it is also hard for me to not listen to Bill and be like, what are the Rising Stars doing here? And why are there 8 or whatever, 12 players per team or whatever it is?
Here's what I will say about the Rising Stars, though. Their entry into it is going to make the other guys care. Because the Rising Stars guys will care about winning.
Oh, yeah.
They are going to try to prove themselves. And then, and then the other guys will be like, nah, hell no. We're not trying to lose to them. Right? Yeah. We don't want to be embarrassed. And so now maybe those guys play with a little more heightened,
It'll be something. But I think that it's also a good transition to talking about downtown Los Angeles is what happened in downtown Los Angeles last night between the Lakers and the Magic.
Oh my gosh.
That I need to go to sleep before 1:00. And this game would not let me go to sleep. This game would not let me go to sleep.
Free throws.
And before the free throws, LeBron James was dominant in the fourth quarter.
How about when he pulled like the
45-footer? That was ridiculous. And he caught a full court pass. He caught a defensive rebound, landed on 2 feet, and then threw a 70-foot pass on the money to AD without moving his feet. Seriously, if someone's like, throw this basketball 70 feet, I'd probably have to take 4 steps and throw it like a baseball. He threw a chest pass, 70 feet over Suggs, who, like Jalen Suggs does, was trying so hard to get it, jumps in the air as high as he can, flailing his arms perfectly right to AD for a dunk. And at that point, you're thinking LeBron just took over this game and it is over. And all they had to do was make free throws. And once AD missed the first one of two, I was like, uh-oh. Look at that score. It's going to be interesting.
And then Franz, who you shouted out last week, Franz with just a monster shot.
It was crazy. Let me just tell you, he took a shot before that, right before that, which was basically the same thing. I don't know if he got a switch on a pick, but I remember the announcers saying, they're like, a little too heliocentric. They literally used that term on the previous possession.
Oh, wow.
They were like a little too heliocentric. I don't know about that. Kind of being like, that sort of philosophy could have cost them the game. And it was like Franz heard them. It was honestly like Franz heard them. It was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do it again for the win. Huge shot.
Oh, and he has been amazing since Banchero went out. I mean, they have needed a guy to carry the water each and every night, and he has been available to carry the water each and every night. They have been one of the great stories in the NBA that's kind of flown under the radar because we truly lamented the fact that they had lost this budding superstar, a guy who looked like he was on an ascension to one of the best, 5 to 10 players in the league, possibly, in Banchero. It's like, oh, here he comes. The time is now. And it's like, geez, they're going to lose this guy. He's the one that carries the water each and every night. And for them to lose him and then have Franz step up in the way that he has stepped up, and their record post losing Banchero has been truly incredible.
Crazy.
I mean, truly incredible.
And Franz Wagner, but last night I didn't know that Mo Wagner still had feelings about the Lakers franchise, because if you remember, he played there before, but he was screaming at the crowd and hitting threes and dunks and dunking on people. I was like, he had 12 in the first half, and I was like, is this a Mo Wagner revenge game? Does he harbor feelings deep down inside about the Laker franchise?
I kind of feel my experience with Mo Wagner is that he seems to have deep feelings about a lot of things.
Good for him.
He's always fired up.
Good for him. But that was he was a huge part of that win. And when you have a defense like the Magic, you're just like, if you're down 8-10, you're kind of not out of it. You know what I mean? Yep. They look really good.
And here's the thing. We talked about them last week because we'll give them another special shout out. They do it because there are these times where they can just get stops.
Yes.
When they need to get stops. They're winning with defense, and there are a couple of teams, especially early in this season, one of which I'm going to mention with my team that I loved this week, that's the way they are able to get by. Because we're going to start with these love and loathe from the week. My team...
wait, hold on. I just want to mention that I think it's, as a journalist, we do have to say the Lakers did lose, but we have to mention that Bronny wasn't available because of a heel bruise. So that's a factor. So
okay.
it is. There's an asterisk in that win.
Point.
There's an asterisk on that win for the Magic
because
they're missing Banchero. Lakers are missing Bronny. So I guess that does cancel out. I just want to make sure.
I didn't even
as a
realize
journalist,
he was out. But obviously,
I saw him in street clothes, and I was like, "Oh, are you allowed to go? Are you like a fan? Are you on the team?"
It's poor analysis by us for that not to be.
But listen,
that's obviously
that's why I'm
headline.
Here. That's why I'm here. I want to cover. Just want to cover all the bases. Bronny James not available. So if you're a Laker fan, we lost. But if we had Bronny, things would have been different.
In fact, I saw the headline. Now that I'm looking at the headline in the LA Times, Lakers lose without Bronny.
Yeah.
So obviously that was a big deal. Team that I love. So I mentioned that Orlando has been one of these teams that has done it with defense. And I've told you that especially at the beginning of the season, so many of the teams that we mentioned are going to be repeat performers as the year goes on. So I'm trying to find teams that might not get mentioned as much throughout the year. And I feel this is a good time, a good week to mention the Los Angeles Clippers. Absolutely shocking that they are 9-7. Even at this point in the season. And 9-7 with James Harden shooting less than 40% from the field and less than 35% from three. If you told me
Wait,
that
what?
if this
40% from the field?
less than.
What?
Yes. And it's 9-7. If you would have told me the Clippers are 9-7, I would have told you, oh, heliocentric Harden is he's probably going off. He's probably got big numbers and he's getting kind of everybody involved. I certainly wouldn't have guessed they're doing it on the backs of Norm Powell, Ivica Zubac, and a defense that's the sixth best defense in the NBA so far. Like these Amir Coffees and Derrick Jones Jr.'s and like all these guys, they are able to stop you from scoring. Their offense has been 24th so far this year, Jacoby. If you're 24th in offense and you're 9-7, it speaks to, and this is the week I'm mentioning them because it's one thing to be able to have a over 500 record and keep yourself in the mix if you're not playing anybody and the schedule's just light. Their wins were against the Warriors and against Orlando. Damn. And they held the Warriors to 99, which is no small feat. And then they held Orlando to 93. So, look, if you're giving up 99 to 93, you're going to be able to win a whole lot of basketball games. They only scored 102 and 104 in those games. And so these two games are emblematic of the fact that they have been better than what we would have expected and why they have been better than what we would have expected because their offense is crap. But their defense, if you can give up 90s point totals, especially with the way the NBA is played right now, you're going to be able to win your share of games. And so the fact that they're even, not only did they get over 500, they did it by beating maybe the two best stories in the NBA or the two bigger surprises in the NBA this year, the Warriors with their incredible depth and Orlando and what they've proven to be even in the absence of Banchero.
It's wild because the whole plan was have Kawhi, PG, Harden open up the new arena. I'm Steve Ballmer. I'll overpay. Don't worry about it. And now we've got Kawhi on the bench with a blank look on his face. Who knows what's going on with him? I have no idea.
No
and
updates.
Then Norm Powell literally being like, I've been waiting for this opportunity my entire career. I've always been this guy. I've just never had an opportunity. And I was just like, I was kind of giggling at that when he first said that. It was like 3 weeks ago. And now I'm like, he might be right. He might be right.
Jacoby, like they've played 16 games, okay? And I know there's going to be some regression to the mean. Norm Powell is shooting 49% from three.
Nuts. Yeah, that's 20% of the season. It's 20% of the season.
Unbelievable.
It's shout to them. All right, we got to move this along. We go too long. I'm going quick on these.
Okay.
Team I love, and this one's easy because I've loved them from the preseason. This is the team that you earmarked early on as a great chemistry team with a new coach, and that's the Charlotte Hornets. And what I love about the Hornets since our last pod is the journey that they have been on. As you hinted at earlier, they played the Nets, and they were ahead. They started losing the lead, and I'm watching the game, and it was after a rec league game, and it was after the Celtics and Cavs had concluded, I believe. And I'm seeing LaMelo Ball on the bench for like the last 4 or 5 minutes. I looked at my buddy and I go, he must have fouled out. Oh, LaMelo Ball fouled out. Mm-hmm. Come to find out, he didn't foul out. And it was a very close game with a lot of opportunity to put him back in the game. And then after the game, your guy, Coach Lee, says, just thought that Trey Mann gave us a little bit more on each side of the floor. And they had a game last night with the Pistons, which I was locked in on. And I'm just going to start with Trey Mann. He dunked all over Clowney on the Nets. And no one that didn't see the game will know this, but he tried to do it again. And I don't remember exactly who it was. It wasn't like Beef Stew. It was like one of their wings. It was like, I want to say Holland or somebody, but he gets past his man. And Trey Mann is like 6'2".
Yep.
And he launches off 2 feet and cocks it all the way back behind his head. He's not trying to sneak it over the rim from in front of a help defender. He goes chest to chest and tries to dunk, almost does, but does not. Trey Man will dunk on you. But the story of this game is this time LaMelo Ball actually did foul out, and Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball were just out of control. Brandon Miller in overtime was unconscious, absolutely unconscious. He had 8 points in overtime. He had 38 on the game. He's 8 for 12 from 3. And the most impressive thing he did was a 2-on-1 break. And unlike Bill Simmons, who will smack out of your hands on the way up, he kind of like jab steps at the ball carrier and then launches in the air and just absolutely swallows this lob pass like in between the two defenders. Like he's equidistant from the alley-oop thrower and catcher. So the ball is in theory going to be like at its peak at that point. And he reaches up. It doesn't just tap it out of the way. He engulfs it, swallows it with his right hand. And the replays look unreal. Like the replays look like he's a go-go gadget. I know people say that a lot, but it is the anticipation, the defense. It just felt like he was in a zone last night. And it was just so impressive. LaMelo had 35 and Miller had 38. It's the first time in Hornets history that two players have had 35 points. And
unbelievable.
Before we move on, I just have to give a shout out to, you talked about how Embiid's 35 was the least impressive 35. Musa Diabate had 1 point in the game, and he was their third best player. I swear to God. I think it was his first start of his life. He had 1 point.
Yeah, no Miles Bridges. So their front court was Diabate and Grant Williams.
Yes, and both of them got there's a lot of Grant Williams out there. And Diabate had 16 boards, 7 offensive rebounds, 1 point. He got fouled at the end of the game. He didn't even try to make the free throws. It was just a formality. He was like, I'm just going to toss it up there towards the basket. Maybe we'll get a rebound. But regardless, I'm just going to keep wrecking this game. It was a really, really impressive week for them. I love the loss. I love the bench. I love Trey Man trying to just absolutely obliterate people in each game. And I love Miller sort of really stepping up and being the prospect and the pro that we thought he would be when he was a prospect. And LaMelo Ball's continuing to his march through the league. It was a really, really good week for the Hornets.
And real quick, just to add on to what you're saying, look, at the beginning of the season, everybody always says there'll be some like Dallas-Phoenix game, and it'll go to overtime, and Luka will hit a game winner, and then everybody will be like, ooh, like immediately everybody runs to Twitter or something. They'll be like, man, sign me up for 7 of those. Man, I hope these teams, I would love to watch these teams play. I would watch, if you want to talk box office, both of those teams last night, the Hornets and the Pistons, I swear to God, every night it feels like they are playing in some kind of unbelievable down the stretch, I've got to flip it on game. Like they're both. And so give me 7 of those. If I could somehow get Hornets Pistons,
it's great.
Because it's both teams every night. It feels like, I'm like, okay, what game should I flip on? It'd be like, oh, the Pistons are coming down to the wire or the Hornets are coming down to the wire. These teams play thrillers like every other game, it feels like. And then, of course, they played each other and went to overtime.
Yep. And in overtime, Taj Gibson
gets
subbed in. Brooklyn's own Taj Gibson gets a key rebound on a loose ball. That's the team I love this week. Easily is the Hornets.
All right, team I loathed. I'm just going to mention the Jazz. I mean, again, this is like just, okay, I know they're going to end up just shutting down Markkanen. They gave him his money. They did the SGA thing that Oklahoma City did a couple of years ago. Hey, we're going to pay you $1 bazillion. We're going to max you out. Just be cool because you kind of know the score here, right? And so go out and have your, you're not going to resent us if you don't get a bunch of awards and everything. If you don't play 65 games, because you kind of know the deal here. I thought they would at least wait until later in the season. And so it's like the funniest thing ever was Will Hardy might have had the press conference line of the year. I don't know if you saw this, where he was talking about Dalton Connect, and he said, everybody.
No, there's a few people.
There's very few people in the world that didn't know Dalton Connect was going to take the next shot. Unfortunately, those few people play for our team. I mean, and that was the Lakers game where they allowed Dalton Connect to turn into the greatest player to ever touch a basketball court. They also played the Spurs, who started. This was the Spurs starting lineup. Chris Paul, Zach Collins, Harrison Barnes, Julian Champagnie, and Stephon Castle, with Charles Bassey being the big difference maker off the bench.
He was.
Like, okay, Danny, just find a place to move John Collins to. Find a place, please, free Colin Sexton and let him go play for somebody that can win something, and then just shut down marketing, because I really don't even know like what the point is. It's not like I can tune you in to watch the development of Keontae George and Cody Williams. Like, I don't care. And so I don't even understand. I get it. You're going to try to lose 1 billion games, but I wish there was just a way that a team could just say, you know what? We're going to forfeit. We're just not even going to play these. We're just not even going to play them. Can you just mark us down for a loss every night?
They led for the majority of that game.
Right.
And I'm sitting there being like, are they going to win this? Because
No.
I don't believe that they make coaching decisions or the players make cognizant decisions to lose basketball games, right? I think you can shut players down, but I don't think they call timeout and get in the huddle with 6 minutes left and they've got a lead and say, for our draft position, we have to lose this. I just don't think that they could possibly do that. I just don't see it happening, especially if you're a coach or a player. Obviously, there's certain things you can do when it gets later in the season when all of a sudden your star player is like, oh, guess what? He's no longer with the team. We've seen that happen a few times. But if you have the Jazz on your schedule, you have to win the game. And I assume you're going to. And that transitions right into the team that I loathe. I was locked in on the Pistons-Hornets game, not because it was good, because the other games on the docket were the aforementioned Spurs and Jazz, which I assume the Spurs are going to win. There's no Wembanyama to watch. Castle's fun or whatever. And then there's the Wolves-Raptors. And I'm keeping an eye on it. I'm like, are they going to lose this game? Are the Timberwolves going to lose this game? So the team that I loathe is the Timberwolves. We spoke about them last. They actually got in your crosshairs last week when they had those 2 games to the Blazers. And they beat the Kings and they beat the Suns. They had Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday off. Okay? And Minnesota-Toronto is not some long trip. So remember, Monday, Tuesday, 3 days off. You're playing the Raptors, who got Scotty Barnes back. And they gave up 56 paint points to the Raptors. And everyone's talking about this Julius Randle didn't pass it to Rudy Gobert thing. I don't even think that's a big deal.
It was objectively hilarious.
I'm going to say not that big a deal, right? If you're Julius Randle, you should probably give him the ball. If you're Rudy Gobert, you should probably get out of the key. If you're Anthony Edwards, you should probably not be yelling at everybody on national television, okay? Like, I think all of them are kind of in the wrong, but it was just kind of, and then did you see a couple possessions later, Randle did throw him the ball under the basket, and the ball bounces off his hands for a turnover. It was insignificant. There's 5-point game with 10 seconds left.
How do you, as a Knicks fan, feel about the R.J. Barrett ascension?
It's a great question. R.J. Barrett showed a lot of potential with the Knicks, right? And he had certain games that looked like he looked last night. But I keep hearing about how great R.J. Barrett's playing and how great Jakob Poeltl's playing. But there's a part of me, it's like, they're going to score 90 points. You know what I mean? It's like, someone's going to do it, right? So
I also think, look, over the years, I've talked to hundreds of NBA players. Routinely, if you talk about their favorite cities to go to, Toronto comes up.
Oh, yeah.
They love, and so if Toronto's got a good enough team, I've always thought about this with Toronto and Atlanta. If they've got a good enough team, but they're not some kind of great team, and so you have to lock in, but good enough and have good enough players to beat you, they end up catching a bunch of wins at home simply because these guys love going out in Toronto and they love going out in Atlanta, and then they show up to that game, and next thing you know, they got R.J. Barrett or Scotty Barnes or Quickly or whoever. They didn't go out the night before. They're ready to bust your ass. Mm-hmm. And so they just have to have a good enough team, because Miami, Atlanta, Toronto are three that particularly stand out as road games that teams will many times, especially if those teams' records aren't that good, will not take as seriously as they need to.
Of course.
I.e., go have fun, and then they get caught.
That could be very much what happened. There's a lot of stories about the Toronto nightlife.
It feels that way because there was a lot of irritability on the court. It felt like
it did. It
felt like a lot of irritability.
And just Google New York Times Raptors nightlife fixer, and you'll find a 4,000 word article that details the NBA visiting players enjoying themselves in Toronto. And that's by the New York Times. That's not like some guy on Twitter with an egg. Like, that's the New York Times and an investigative report on this. And another thing I know is, as a Knicks fan, a day game, that's a win. That is a win.
Oh, yeah.
If it's a Saturday at 1 o'clock, that's a win. The Martin Luther King, they have a game every Martin Luther King Day at like noon. The Garden doesn't even wake up until the third quarter. Like, people just like to sleep in their seats, but that's always a win. That's the team that I load this week. I look forward to them getting back together. I also want to say that I don't think that Rudy Gobert, Anthony Edwards, Julius Randle thing was a big deal to me at all. Not a big deal to me. I think Joel Embiid, they got real chemistry problems there. But I don't think that one possession was like indicative of some like deeper problem that they have with this team.
I for one was absolutely shocked that Julius Randle doesn't love passing.
Yeah. Yeah. I did listen to his post-game comments to see if there's anything there. And he said all the right things. He took accountability, not about that play, but he's like, we need to decide who we are. I put it on myself. I had 4 turnovers. Like, he said all the right things. I expected him to say something stupid, but he didn't.
He should have said, I didn't throw it to him because the guy sucks.
Because he sucks. Because he can't hit a hook shot. He's 7'5".
What's he going to do?
He's being covered by a shooting guard.
What do you want?
And he can't hit a turnaround hook. If it's not a dunk that's been hand delivered to him, it's not going in the basket. It's just the way Rudy Gobert is. It's just the way it is.
Player I loved. We can go through this quick. It goes without saying, Dalton Connect. I mean, It started over the weekend, Saturday. He had a huge game. And then on Tuesday night, had 37. And then last night, followed that up with 17 and 4. I mean, just this week, he's been 19 of 30 from the field, 12 of 19 from 3. And for the year, 52% from the field, 46% from 3, 92% from the line. We are, not yet a quarter of the way through the season, but he's a 50, 40, 90 guy through the first, 15, 16 games of his career, which is crazy.
He got a corner 3 last night. Then the arena was just already erupting before he caught the ball. It was just like there's a hush over the crowd. There's just this anticipation that it's going to go in. He's going to have one of these nights. He's really captured everybody on the team. I have one note for Dalton Connect, which is going to be very helpful for me and for others watching. You cannot have the same height, same build, same hair color, same skin tone, and also have a one-legged black compression pant like Florence Griffith Joyner, because Austin Reeves also has all of those things. My TV is not that big. So I'm watching it. They both have one-leg compression. And it's not like, they're both white guys. They both have pretty much the same hairstyle, because I don't get the details because of Dalton's are a little curlier or whatever. But they've got the same build, the same weight, same height, same game, same uniform. And they both have one black compression leg on. It's too much. I need something. It's like when you have twin
differentiate
babies.
Them.
Yeah, when you have twin babies, you like tie a string around one's wrist or something. It's like they need to do something. Like Tyler Hero is probably the same height. He's also white. I'll never get Tyler Hero and Dalton Connect confused. But Austin Rivers and Dalton Connect, they're just too identical on the court.
Austin
Please
Reeves,
do something.
Austin Rivers.
No, Austin Reeves, yeah.
The Ringer's Austin Rivers.
Yeah. Austin Reeves is who I meant.
By the way, just want to say, I've seen now 3 of these guys. No, 3 of these guys in person. One of them I saw in Summer League. There was a run in this last year's draft, something you shouted out a couple weeks ago about how some of these rookies have been better than you thought. There was a run from 14 to 17.
Oh, yeah.
That looks pretty damn great right now. Bub Carrington, who I shouted out, who I like, Khalil Ware, who has not gotten run for Miami, but I think is going to be a real player, and I loved what I saw from him at Summer League as an athletic big for this style of NBA. And then McCain, and then Connect.
And McCain is the most effective player on a team that has Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, and Joel Embiid.
I mean, 14 through 17 is looking pretty damn good from last year's draft, for sure. All right, player you loved.
Player I loved, and this is happiness is a function of expectations, like I always said. And obviously, I went through a gamut of emotions with the Karl-Anthony Towns trade. I was not sad to see Julius Randle go. I love Dante DiVincenzo, but I had questions about Cat fitting in. I had faith that Tibbs, having worked with him for years before, had a plan for this. And I was concerned about the defense. I was concerned about his personality. I was concerned about the Knicks having this hard-nosed identity, sort of like your grit and grind Grizzlies. And I didn't feel that Cat necessarily fit into that. I had concerns about his personality, his sort of authenticity, for lack of a better word, and his toughness on the basketball court. And I have been so happy with Karl-Anthony Towns on the New York Knicks. Like, Brunson has not been gangbusters to start off the year, but just that game against the Suns this week is, everyone talks about his shooting, right? Everybody talks about how, it stretches the floor. He's shooting 50% from three. Again, like Dalton Connect, like it won't last. It'll come back to earth. But he's shooting 50% from three. Like that's on 5.3 attempts per game. Not like 2 attempts per game. 50% from three, right? But with Nurkic, like they kind of like mid-post him and he'll back someone down like 3 dribbles and then turn over his shoulder, get to the hoop, or turn over his shoulder and hit a fadeaway. If you cannot put a small on him, because he will punish that. And he could pick and pop, and he could pick and roll. But with Nurkic, there's a couple times he went through him. There's a couple times he went around him. Now, again, Nurkic isn't exactly, defensive player of the year candidate, but like he's a big man, and Karl-Anthony Towns was aggressive, and he was getting his shoulder into him, and he was doing it from inside and out. And I think it was like 3 for 8 from three, which he didn't light it up, but he either like took threes or took really, really good sort of 8-footers, or he was at the rim. And he did it with strength. And my guy, Tim Bontemps, former colleague, love that dude. He had the stat like a week ago. You saw the stat? It was like,
they're shooting 100%.
Yeah, they're shooting 150%. You might as well just like not be there. And it's hard to argue with like an objective number. But I follow a bunch of like Knicks accounts, and that number has come back down to earth a little bit. Something tells me that found his mentions. But again, like it's easy to say like, oh, the player I loved was the guy who scores 30 points a game for my favorite team. But it's really about what I expected versus what I'm getting, and it is still a work in progress.
Well, and I do think if you're a Knicks fan, what you hold on to is it's a Tibbs team. The defense will come around. We certainly expected them to be a defensive team. Right now, the Cavs are the best offense in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
Knicks are 2.
Well, let's not also forget, and again, this is a bit delusional because I have a lot of reservations about how effective Mitchell Robinson is as a center in the NBA. But I'll say this. Remember, the former team that Karl-Anthony Towns was on when he was the center, they traded the farm, the barn, and like one of their kids to bring in Rudy Gobert because they needed Rudy Gobert next to Cat to get their defense to the next level, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like when Mitchell Robinson comes back in spells, they'll have that kind of like twin tower duo that can cover up for a lot of things that Cat doesn't do on defense against certain matchups.
Player that I loathed, Tyrese Halliburton. 2 games this week. They lost by 11 to Toronto on Monday. Then they went and got their ass kicked by Houston by 17. He was a combined 6 for 25, 3 for 14 from 3. For the season, he is shooting 38% from the field, 28% from 3. And we're only like 15, 16 games in. He's had a 0, 4, 6, and 9-point games. This guy was all NBA last year. Like,
this time last year, he was like the best player in the league.
We went to Vegas for the in-season tournament. Every damn billboard had Tyrese Halliburton on it.
Oh, do you know? I don't know if you've seen it yet, but they're going to edit him out of the NBA Heist commercial somehow. They're going to use AI. They're going to edit him out of it. They're gonna put Dalton Connect in. I don't know how they're gonna do it, but they're gonna do it.
Just totally bizarre. Totally bizarre.
It's not because it felt like last year there was very much a pre and post injury Halliburton, right? And it was a stark difference. And what I said to myself is someone who rooted very hard against this man, and he's not my favorite personality in the National Basketball Association. I'll just say that.
It is crazy. The one great game he's had this year was probably the Knicks game.
Yeah,
right?
It was. But I really felt like, given the off season and the Olympics experience, that he would come back to form from a year ago. But instead, he has come back to form by that post-injury Halliburton. And I don't really see any answers. He seems healthy, right?
I mean, yeah, but again, post-Olympics, we saw him with the 3 white chicks at 5 a.m. congratulating 50 Cent. We just got in from the club. I mean, that's just not a... I mean, I think it's tough to have a video out there going, we just got back from the club. Congratulations, 50 Cent. You've always been down with me. And then go out and like the first quarter of the season shoot less than 40% and 30% from 3. I think people are going to rightfully question your commitment.
It's interesting. I don't have a fix. Like if you look at someone like Maxey, or like we talk about Maxey and Bede and George, like they're all kind of coming back from injury, new teams, this and that. Like their roster's been pretty consistent from last year to this year. He had a whole summer to get right.
The one thing I'll say as an excuse for them is their schedule is wrong. If you go look at it, I mean, there's not a lot of Portland, San Antonio,
like
Utah,
Washington trips.
No.
Yeah.
It's like you look at their schedule and it's like Orlando and like at Charlotte or something will be like one of those where it's like, oh, okay, that's probably winnable. But then it'll be like the Knicks and the Celtics and the Cavs. You're like, damn, man, their schedule at the beginning of this has been tough. So maybe it'll come around, but they better hope so. But this guy was supposed to be a superstar.
Oh, yeah.
All NBA level performer, and he has been a dud. Who's the player?
It's been weird for them this year, man. I don't see them turning it around.
Player you loathe.
Okay. So this is personal a little bit. I've always kind of not liked this guy. I don't know why. His last 3 games, he's 1 for 3 from 3, 0 for 4 from 3, 1 for 7 from 3. One of the sort of like key points to his turnaround, the team's turnaround, is him losing his starting job. And the last time he was in the news because J.J. Redick was giving him credit for Dalton Connect scoring 37 points. And I'm talking about D'Angelo Russell.
Oh,
and
wow.
Last night, I'm watching this game, and he's 1 for 7 from 3, right? And I was like, there's something in my heart where I was like, he is wrong tonight. So I went back, and you can watch all of his 3-point attempts on NBA.com. It's a very nice feature. The first one is wide open at the buzzer. Naked. Missed. Second one on the wing. Again, swing, naked. Like not even a hand in the air around him. Missed. Then he takes a contested step back, hits that one. Now he's opening the corner, missed. And this is when it gets weird. He ball fakes the defender away from him. Air ball, short. The next one, air ball, long. And then the last one was just short. 2 straight air balls in a tight game at home on open threes.
This is the guy that J.J. Redick said he talked to the most in the offseason to get ready.
Well, because he wants to talk to him a lot now because he's not going to be able to talk to him after they trade him. So he wants to get it all in early. That's what's really happening.
How about another theory? Bro, don't evaluate D'Angelo Russell until post-trade deadline because he just plays like this until he knows he's not going to get traded. And then once the trade deadline passes, he turns into a different player. That's what happened last year.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because if you were trying to trade someone, I don't know if taking them out of the starting rotation is a way to feature them. Exactly.
Right. No, I know.
But I don't think that's what the agenda is for J.J. Redick. I think he's trying to win basketball.
All right. Thing that I love. I already mentioned the Will Hardy press conference, so I'm gonna scratch that. Raptors court.
Oh, yeah.
It needs to be full time.
Oh,
that is maybe the best basketball court you could ever imagine. Like, and we've obviously had a million new courts, and people have received those in different ways. Certainly during the Emirates Cup, people see all the new courts and they have their opinion on those courts. I think this is one that I think very rarely would you find a situation where NBA fans would be absolutely unanimous. If I said, "What do you like this court?" I think 100% yes. I cannot fathom somebody not liking that Raptors court with the dinosaur in the middle.
The dinosaur.
It might be the best court ever.
And the uniforms, the whole look. Like the San Antonio one last night just didn't feel right. There's no gray, no black. You're like, what are we doing here? But like that, the Lakeshore court was cool. Yeah. That court is the best court in the NBA. I wish I could disagree with you. You're right. Sometimes you're in a relationship, a romantic relationship, and it ends, but it doesn't end bad. Maybe you just move to a different city or something, and you just kind of you wish you're with that person, you still have feelings for that person, but you just want what's best for them. And then you see on social media that they're thriving, they've got a new job, they've got in shape, they're dating some like handsome guy.
Talk it out, Jacoby. You're just
happy for him. You know what I mean? You're just happy for him. And that is how I felt watching Isaiah Hartenstein in his debut with the Thunder.
Oh, I am so pleased by this because I really thought the ending was going to be, that's how I felt looking at Jenny's Instagram.
No.
I'm kidding.
I've been the same girl for like 22 years. So I always give dating advice. Like I haven't been on a date in like 3 decades, but sure, I'll tell you what to do on a date. Hartenstein, because we like Joel Embiid's first time on the court. I mean, again, totally different injury, totally different situation, but it's like you got to play yourself back into shape or whatever. Like Hartenstein had a hand thing, which I think he's clearly over. He was so quintessentially Hartensteinian in that game. Did you see the possession with the 2 behind the back passes?
And they missed them
blew
both.
They smoked them both. And he's on a brand new team in his debut. After the second one, he had to put his hands up like, come on, y'all. But he had the alley-oop block and then beat everybody down the court for an alley-oop finish. 13 points, 14 rebounds, 5 offensive rebounds, 3 assists. Should have been 4 assists, 4 blocks.
Dude, I love him.
I've loved him since he was with the Clippers. I don't think people even know he played for the Clippers.
Yeah.
But I loved him on the Clippers. Obviously, on the Knicks, he got a lot of opportunity and made the most of it. But I think that, I watched a lot of Hartenstein. I think that people will see a lot more of him now being on the Thunder. He's a playmaker. He can operate. There's one possession he had. I swear to God, it was like 2 dribble handoffs, 4 passes, dives for a loose ball at the end of the shot clock, and hits a shooter for a 3, which I guess will be like an assist in the box score. But it was, I'm going to try to make this happen for my teammate. I'm going to try to make this happen for my teammate. Try to make this happen for my teammate. I'm going to save the possession by diving on the floor, even though I'm 7 feet tall, and then I'm going to get an assist. It was such a great quintessential Hartensteinian performance from a team that needs a center so bad, they were starting Lou Dort at the center position.
Jacoby, he's one of those guys that it makes absolutely no difference what team he's on. You could plug him in on any team. He's got no reps. It's all new guys he's playing with, no game reps. And you just plug him in and he's immediately effective. And I feel like you could take Hartenstein and you could put him on every team in the NBA, and he could be effective tomorrow night.
Yep.
And that is a talent.
If you look at like Chet and Wemby, and you call them playmakers, and they also make plays themselves. Like Chet will like cross you up, you know what I mean, and take his man. Like Hartenstein's not going to do that, and Wemby will shoot a step back 3. Maybe he'll shoot 1 for 8 for them in the game. But Hartenstein is a playmaker in the sense that if you cut around him, he'll get you the ball. And if he has a dribble handoff and his man follows the cutter, he'll get to the hoop. He's got a weird little like push shot from 8 feet, which is like 90% effective before he gets into the help defense. I'm just so happy that he's on this team. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times you see like the Jeremy Grants of the world who we've spoken about, where it's like, I'm going to go get the bag. You guys won't offer me what I think I'm going to go get the bag. I'll be on Detroit. I'll score 25 a game and that'll be fine. Maybe I'll make the All-Star team. But like he's on a great team making money that he should be paid, and he's going to have real playoff moments deep into the Western Conference. I could not be happier for him. Loved it.
The thing I loathed this week, I swear, this happens 5 times a season where I see the headline and it's about NBA ratings are down. And so this one was NBA ratings are down and Adam Silver blames the World Series and the election. And then there's this whole story about how here's the NBA ratings and how they compare to. I don't care. Why should I care? Why? I love watching the NBA. They signed an $11 billion TV deal.
Mm-hmm.
And like, to me, all this like ratings talk of like, here's what their TV ratings are and what's going on with their TV ratings. And to me, it is not indicative of the health of the league. I think for the majority of you and my lifetime, if you said, hey, here's what the TV ratings are, that would then lead us to believe like what the interest is in that sport, right? Say, oh, this used to be super popular, but it's not popular anymore. In this day and age with streaming and with iPads, and I've chronicled this for many years on this show. I have now a 14-year-old son who has been an NBA fan since he was born. And obviously, I know all of his friends and his peer group and everything else. Okay. And the way that now that whole generation of kids takes in, my son does not know one thing on television. Not one. He might be able to he would be able to tell you when Sunday Night Football is on, when Monday Night Football is on. He would know Monday Night Raw just because it's in the name.
He's not watching The Rookie? No?
He watches none of it live. So, again, you can say that this is a problem and this is going to be a problem going forward, that, there's a whole generation of people that don't watch sports live and et cetera, et cetera. I get it, right? The product is going to change. But to me, it is always this doom and gloom, and it just doesn't match up. It doesn't match up with the interest. If you want to tell me that this is indicative of the interest in the league, I don't believe you. I host an NBA podcast. This podcast will be one of the top 20 to 30 sports podcasts that comes out this week. How?
It's the New York Times doesn't sell as many newspapers. People don't read the newspaper anymore because we all have phones. That's analogous. People are not tuning in to their televisions and saying, what time is the game on anymore? And again, it's also November in the regular season. The league, the ratings are down. Relevancy, impact is up. And I just know that just from being on the subway train, it seems like every other conversation is about the NBA that I'm eavesdropping on. It seems like every other conversation about the NBA when I walk down the street. There are so many more people wearing NBA logos on their clothes than NFL logos on their clothes. The NFL is always going to have the television ratings because it's a once a week event. There's 16 games and the playoffs, and every game feels so important, feels like a huge event. But I understand the ratings are down, but that doesn't mean the league is not thriving. That doesn't mean the league is not relevant.
Why should I care?
I mean,
we just always are talking about what's wrong, and talk about, I don't believe that people are now not watching basketball. I understand that your TV ratings, right? But to me, I don't care about TV ratings much anymore.
And you scroll social media, you see all the stuff. You know what I mean? So people don't want to grind regular season games the way that we do, but they're still involved in the league. They still know who's playing well, who's playing poorly, who dunked, who didn't, who had 35, who had 37. You don't have to see Dalton Knecht scored 37 to know Dalton Knecht scored 37.
I just think it's always used as if we're doing here is the point and here's what this means. Okay. So you're saying, hey, NBA ratings down. And I say, okay, what does that mean? If your answer is that means interest is down in the NBA, I don't believe you.
I don't believe you either. And also, if you're the NBA, you're like, we're still getting our value is apparently $11 billion. So people that are broadcasting the games want to pay us that. So we'll take that. And the basketball related revenue is not going anywhere. The league's not going anywhere. And it's like the argument that the WNBA is like losing money or something. It's like, I don't know. That might be true. But I don't know. It seems like the WNBA was kind of popping this season.
Seems like it's doing a lot better than it was.
Like, I don't know. Call me crazy. Yep. Seems like it's kind of a thing this year. But yeah, I agree with you on that one. And again, I like that you're sort of like your perspective on it. It's like, what does that mean to me? You know what I mean? Like, doesn't change my life one bit if they've doubled or they've halved. I'm still going to do my thing. And that's a good perspective to have. I'm going to go quickly on mine. This is like an actual like old guy get off my lawn thing. I hate the gun celebrations. Your guy Desmond Bain did one, boy. And who was it? It was a Martin. It's like, I understand, like, Wesley Matthews used to do like the bow and arrow thing.
Yeah.
But it's kind of different when you make a gun gesture and point it at the guy who contested the three.
Caleb Martin hated it too.
Yeah, and Scotty Barnes did it in the game. It was just kind of like,
I don't like it.
And even if you're not pointing at the guy,
on this, and the reason I'm with you on this is because I'm in gyms and soccer fields all the time with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And they do mimic what they see.
Of course.
And yeah, that's what I don't like about it. That's what I don't like about it.
Yeah, it's like, I don't want to do like a whole gun control conversation, gun violence thing. That's not our podcast. But it's just like, I don't want kids to like, I don't want to go to the game and then my kid hits a shot. Next thing you know, he's pointing guns at people. It's just like, let's just not do it. Okay.
I'm with you.
Maybe I'm an old man, get off my lawn guy.
No, you're not.
There's other ways to celebrate besides pointing a gun at the opponent who was probably not even your matchup and was like helping somebody else out. You know what I mean?
And I'm there. I mean, again, I see it all the time. They do what I'll tell you this. The other night, my daughter scored a goal in the soccer game. And she saw somewhere. She ran back down the field and looked over at me and did the shush. And the other...
So 8-year-olds wearing compression tights. I'm like, you're 8, bro.
Bro, Jacoby, she's 11. All right? All the other parents are like, is she shushing? And I'm like...
I don't know.
And I'm like, hey... What are you doing?
This is the opposing crowd. You want to quiet the opposing crowd. Yeah.
She saw it somewhere.
The opposing
She saw
parents.
it somewhere. So to your point, I just experienced this as a parent where I'm like, it was out of nowhere. She's running down the sideline going, shush. And I'm like, where did you see that? She's like, she saw it on YouTube. Somebody did it.
Verno, this is the one that I really loathe that we're going to end on. I love LeBron James. Just as like a pure basketball player, right? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I love what he does. But sometimes he makes it so hard to like him. Like this week with the Dalton Connect, I watch a lot of Tennessee. I was all over him. I knew this was coming. I saw Dalton Connect 14 years ago. I've been tracking his whole career. I'm the one who marked him to get drafted for the Lakers. This is all me. You guys finally caught up to this. I can't believe he slid to us because I knew that Dalton Connect was this guy the whole time.
And I know you're going to say I'm lying because you always say I'm lying.
And then he said, the internet says I'm lying. So then he reacted to that already. And then this dude, shout out to Rich Kleiman, who like wrote like a nice perspective on sort of voices and information that you let inside yourself. And LeBron retweeted it. And then he announces that he's off social media. It's like, bro, you can just do that. You know what I mean? You don't have to announce it to get the points for being off social media. You know, it's like, I love LeBron so much, but I loathe that certain things he does off the court just make him seem a little corny and make me like him a little less. And I'm really trying to be 100% on LeBron, but it's every day I'm like a little less and less and less.
Which would have been better? Him saying, I'm leaving social media for a while, or find me at Blue Sky. All right. That's going to do it for another episode of The Mismatch. Thank you to our executive producer, Jesse Lopez, as always. And Jacoby, I'll talk to you next week.
Find me on Blue Sky.